I met that team on the Texters Weekend earlier on in July this year, and I just want us to wind up this discussion by talking about disability etiquette, really. There's been the question of whether or not to call them people with disabilities or people with disabilities or whatever it is we may choose to call them. Bernard, what do you think about disability etiquette in this country, and how can we champion that too?
Thank you, George. I think it's a sensitive topic because there is a lot of lack of awareness. But simply put, it's just a respectful and dignified way of talking about disability and being comfortable that you're not demeaning anyone. So there is no generally accepted global language around this. So every country has to kind of come up with what is acceptable. But we do have guidelines around the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, which is a global law that Kenya is part of. And they say it's just okay to refer to anyone or people who have disabilities as persons with disabilities. That way, you are cognizant, first of all, they are people, and saying with disability does not in any way attribute that disability as their fault. It's just circumstances that are brought about by barriers in the society that we have that is not inclusive.
Amazing. Nancy, as we bring this discussion to a close, we have the Deaf Awareness Month, which is coming up in September. Yeah. But before you talk to us about the Deaf Awareness Month, we'd like you to also just pick your mind on what you feel with the inclusion of people living with disabilities in matters of their own innovations. I'm talking about innovations that are coming up where people with disabilities are not involved, but yet these innovations are the ones that are going to affect them. So talk to us about how to include people with disabilities in policy, in terms of budgetary allocation towards the innovation, and briefly touch on also on the Deaf Awareness Month.
Yeah, thank you. So in innovation, there is a tool called user-centered design. So this is where you put the user at the center of the innovation. So you don't necessarily read things and create things, but you go to the user and ask them what is it that the challenges that they have and the idea that you have. And so you walk the journey with them in designing and validating the product. And that's what the Innovate Now program was really helpful for us. And once you do that, then the product actually answers the pain of the user. So I think that's the core of innovation, engaging the people with disabilities at that level, and then also broadly at the spaces of advocacy and policy. Also bringing them into those spaces, and even at the best, going to where they are and engaging them with the policies that are being developed at an organization level, at a country level, at a county level. And I think it would be interesting to have a conversation with the standard group around your disability inclusion strategy or thinking around that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, and based on even what Bernard was saying in terms of terminologies, there is a way to address people with disabilities, and there was an anomaly that was aired in one of your programs around the terminology of deaf and dumb. But we forgive you because we understand the journey is not easy.
Exactly.
And we are happy to to work with you together in the Innovate Now program. Yeah. So on the Deaf Awareness Month, I want to ask you a question. Am I allowed? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Do you remember how you learned language, or if you have children around you, nieces, nephews?
I really can't remember. I just got myself reading. I really can't remember how I learned language.
No problem, I'll help you with that. So your children generally learn language through imitation, repetition. So one day you just hear a child mentioning mama, baba, like, where did you get that? Yeah, because they had, yeah. However, that doesn't happen to deaf children born to hearing parents. 95% of deaf children are born by hearing parents who are not prepared for a disability. Like I said, they're unwilling users. I don't think anyone is prepared for disability. And so as they figure that space, they miss to expose their child to language, so rather Kenyan Sign Language, and thus they miss language development. And what is really sad about this is that the answer is very simple. The parent just needs to be aware at postnatal care and then access child-friendly Kenyan Sign Language within the language development period. So when they don't, there's part of a brain that is in charge of language development that shrinks, and it's an irreversible process, and that is language deprivation. Yes, it's sad. We are able to communicate because we have language, but then deaf children who suffer from language deprivation will never be fluent in any language, then how do they live life? How do they transact? How do they enjoy their mothers? How do they ask questions? And so that's what the Deaf Awareness Month will be about, to be creating awareness around language deprivation and indicating that education for deaf children starts with the parent as postnatal, the place of chances are God might give you a child who has deafness. What do you do about it? Yeah, so that's what we offer at Lugha Ishara. But broadly, there is a theme that has been already given by the World Federation of the Deaf.
Okay.
And the theme is celebrating thriving deaf communities.
Amazing.
Yes.
All right. Many thanks, Nancy Maina, for speaking to us on matters of people living with disabilities and how to enable